I'm John Gutierrez, here with Will Stevenson and Anthony Silvani, and you're on Beyond the Sidelines. First topic for today, Browns exercise Baker Mayfield's fifth-year option.
I think that this is a good move for the Browns. I think Baker Mayfield is coming into his own. I think that this, after his fifth-year option, if he hasn't made a good, deep playoff run or potentially won a Super Bowl, I think that they're might move on from him. But I think that before the season there was talks of Baker Mayfield being a potential bust, and now Baker Mayfield's a solid top 15 quarterback in my personal opinion. I don't think he's going to crack much higher than top 15, but I think the fifth-year option is a good move here for the Browns.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. He played like a top 10 QB last year, especially when Odell went out. Especially he found his rhythm, he found his targets, and he was able to do what he did in Oklahoma, just throw the ball whenever he wanted to, and his offensive line got better. I think it's a good move for Cleveland to keep their star quarterback around.
Yeah, and I think that them doing this makes me think that they're probably going to say, hey, we like you, Baker. We're probably going to give you an extension. It's probably going to be a decent size, but we need one more year for you to prove it. And then I also think that they should move on from Odell Beckham Jr. just because we've seen it in the year that Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't there his rookie year. He played really, really well. The year that Odell Beckham Jr. was healthy, they finished with a, what was it?
6-10, I think.
6-10 with a top 10 pick again. And then this year, after Odell goes out again, they start winning again and they make a run to the divisional round of the playoffs. I think that it's a clear, noticeable problem that the Browns need to realize really soon, and Odell's a huge cap hit. So.
Yeah, I think so. They could get a lot of value out of him. They can get a first-round pick out of him. And
maybe. Not in today's market.
I think
2 years ago, it would have made sense to say Odell's worth a first-round pick, but he hasn't been playing well, and he's coming off of an ACL injury, which is a big injury, especially for receivers.
Yeah, I just think that he's still first-round material. He's really good. He's a top wide receiver. I think he just doesn't fit in the Browns system. They like to throw the ball to Jarvis Landry, who's the number one target. He has to be the number one target next year.
I agree, 100%.
Now on to the other football. The European Super League is off. What do you guys got?
This is a good move. When the news came out last week, I hated it. I instantly texted my friend saying if this happened, I would be done watching it while watching football. And the owners only did it for the money. There was $3.5 billion, I think, that were invested, and it would have ruined the sport as we know it. It would have taken away the 12 teams from their domestic leagues, and they wouldn't have been allowed. It's almost as like saying Patrick Mahomes couldn't be playing in the Super Bowl or the Pro Bowl. They couldn't compete in the World Cup or the Euros. And I think the 12 owners finally figured it out, except for Florentino Perez, who's the Real Madrid owner. He's the one that's at the forefront of it, and he needs to rethink his position at that club.
I don't know much about soccer, but I think that the Super League is a good idea in theory, get all the best teams together to make them play against each other, but then you realize that it's going to affect the not as good teams and make it harder to make money in, as you said, the domestic, like in their home countries. It'll be harder for them to make money.
Yeah, I mean, there was one thought only. There was money. The fans instantly protested, and then Tuesday, the news reported that the 6 English teams were going to back out, and then the next day, the 3 Italian leagues backed out, and then the only teams remaining left are Real Madrid and FC Barcelona. They have to back out now. They're in debt. That's why they're in this. They're in Barcelona, especially. They're in massive amounts of debt. That's the only reason they joined this. But watching teams to be the underdog and pull out the upset, like we saw this year, Leeds United beat the champions Manchester City. We wouldn't get to see that in the Super League. We don't want to see the top teams going at it, and no one likes to see that. It's the fun of the Champions League, which is what it was going to ruin, is that we see these games once every 2 or 3 years, and that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, as I said before, I don't really watch much soccer, but I think that the idea of the Super League, it made sense when I first read it, and then I looked into it and it didn't make very much sense. So I'm happy to see that for the sake of the sport and all that most teams are backing out. But especially if you're Real Madrid, who you said's at the front runner, and Barcelona, who's in debt, and that's the only reason they're there. Once you've stood firm in a position like this, you can't do it like the Italian and English teams. they were there because it seemed like a good idea, but then they saw this is actually a bad idea and had the ability to back out while Real Madrid was at the forefront of it. So they can't back out until everyone is backed out, and they're forced to back out.
Yeah.
Now moving back across the pond to the American football. The first round of the NFL draft starts tomorrow, and rumors are that the 49ers are choosing between Mac Jones and Trey Lance at pick 3.
I think this is a very, very intriguing pick. I think that they shouldn't rule out Justin Fields, who in my personal opinion is the second best quarterback in this draft. It's Trevor Lawrence, then Justin Fields, and then a drop off to Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, then Mac Jones. And I think that they shouldn't rule him out, but reports are coming out that there's a conflict between management and the coaching staff. Management wants Trey Lance, coaching staff wants Mac Jones. So I'm very interested to see what they do here.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the draft starts at 3. We know the number 1 and 2, they're locked in as Lawrence and Wilson. But I think I'd stay away from Mac Jones if I was any team in the top 10. I don't like what he's been able to do. If you take out those 2 receivers that he had, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, he's not a first-round talent. This guy is probably second or third. But because he had those first-round talents, and because he won the national championship, he's vaulted in the top 10. I don't think he's top 10 material. I don't think he's first-round material. I think he's going to be a career backup at best.
I think that you undervalue Mac Jones. He's not my favorite quarterback, but his football mind is amazing. All the reports that are coming out are saying that Mac Jones has a really high football IQ and all this stuff. And I think that combining a football mind like Mac Jones is with Kyle Shanahan's is what Shanahan really wants. And I think that he's going to have to sit a year probably, assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster, which is what the 49ers have said is their plan. But then Shanahan came out and said that he doesn't know and all that. So I think that Mac Jones' football mind is what's elevating him right now.
He's in today's game, you want to have a mobile quarterback. He is not mobile by any stretch, and I think Trey Lance is way more mobile. He can run out of the pocket. He can make plays happen with his feet. So can Justin Fields. I think it should be between Fields and Lance, not Fields and Jones.
We'll save the arguments here for the argumentative section of the show, where Anthony and I are going to debate this pick.
Next up, Kansas City trades 31st overall pick to the Ravens for offensive tackle Orlando Brown.
I don't like this move for the Ravens.
What?
It's a good move for the Chiefs. They needed a tackle. But for the Ravens to trade away your best offensive lineman to
He's not their best offensive lineman.
One of their best offensive linemen. To a contending team in the AFC, why would you do? I get you get another first-round pick. I just don't like what they did. They know the Chiefs are always going to be contending with the Ravens. They always play each other. I just think for the Ravens, now they have to go with that 31st overall pick or the 27th pick an offensive lineman, which I don't think was in their original plans. And we get Orlando Brown wanted out. I just don't think sending him to the Chiefs would have been a better thing. I like the move for the Chiefs, though. They needed a tackle, and they got the tackle. They got a star tackle. I just don't like what the Ravens did.
I think that it's crazy that you don't like this move. I think that it's a great move for both sides. The Ravens acquire another first-round pick, which is super valuable. And then there was a couple more pick swaps. And yes, they traded him to a team that they will likely have to face in the playoffs. But with that, you have to realize that the Chiefs were probably one of the only teams to offer a first-round pick for him. Because if someone wants out, their value drops like a lot. You saw it with, like Antonio Brown when he got traded. He went for a 5th and something else, as opposed to a first-round talent when he was traded. Or James Harden. Yes, it was still a big trade, but he's worth more than what they gave up for him.
I just think that the Ravens made a bad decision sending him to the Chiefs.
I think that that's wrong. I think it's good for both sides. And I think that the Ravens are going to try to use their 2 first-round picks, even though they're later, to move up to the 15 to 20 area to take someone
I could
like
easily
a Bateman.
I could easily see them trading up because they need a receiver so bad.
Bateman.
Now moving to basketball. Lonzo Ball will reportedly be available through a sign and trade this offseason.
I can't say we didn't see it coming after he didn't get an extension there with the Pelicans. Lonzo Ball has had a bit of an up and down in his career. He started off as a very hyped up player, being the 2nd overall pick, and then going from being the 2nd overall pick to who everyone widely considered to being a bust, and now to being a point guard who I think is a top passing, defending point guard in the NBA. I think his passing and defense are very high level, and I think that a team that would make sense for him through a sign-and trade would be, no matter how this sounds, I think that sending him to a team like the Charlotte Hornets, to be, one, so he could be with his brother, and two, because having him run the shooting guard with LaMelo at the point guard would be, his defense could make up for LaMelo's lack of defense, and I think that the passing on that team would be really nice with P.J. Washington, and then at the 3 you have Miles Bridges. So.
Yeah, I can see that. I think he's really talented. He's always been talented. He's really underrated, and he's a starting point guard in the NBA. I mean, what more can you have? And I think any team that gets him will have a real guy on their hand that they can turn into a star. Especially if he goes to a team like maybe the Heat, they can turn him into a star.
Yeah.
Now on to the arguments. Should the 49ers take Mac Jones or Terry Lance?
I'll start off here. I think that the 49ers should take Mac Jones. I think that you should go with what the coaching staff wants, and the coaching staff appears to want Mac Jones. I think that his football mind is next level. He's by far, in my opinion, has the best football IQ in this draft. And yes, he had 2 top 1 wide receivers, and people like to use that against him, but he still managed to win a national championship against a pretty good defense in the Ohio State defense. So I really do think that it makes a lot of sense for them to go Jones here. I see the other perspective. However, I think that Jones's IQ combined with Shanahan's IQ is something to be reckoned with.
I think it should be Trey Lance. I can see where you're coming from with Mac Jones. I just think he's just not as good as Lance. Lance has better arm strength, better mobility. He's raw talent. He can sit under Garoppolo for a year and then start next year, and I think that's what San Francisco wants. And Mac Jones won't be able to do that, I don't think. I think he's going to want to start. And I think that's not what Shanahan wants. I think Trey Lance has the ability to take this team to the next level.
I also think that, yes, Trey Lance is on paper has better measurables than Mac Jones. But I think that Mac Jones' floor is way higher than Trey Lance's floor. Trey Lance has a pretty decently high ceiling, but a really, really low floor. He's very raw, while Mac Jones is somewhat raw, but most of the way there. He just has to get better at just putting more zip on the ball over the middle of the field.
I just think Trey Lance has way more upside. He's got way more potential than Mac Jones has, and I think with Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance would be a match made in heaven. That offense would be electric. With him, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, I think that team with Trey Lance will be at the next level.
And I think that I see where you're coming from. It'd be a very exciting offense to watch. But I think Mac Jones provides Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to leave next year, and if they don't win a Super Bowl, then they want to win a Super Bowl now. And I think that if you take a guy like Lance, though I would like to pick I think that a developmental thing makes sense. But if you're trying to make a run at a Super Bowl with the young defense that they have, even though most of them are coming back from injuries, getting a guy with a low ceiling that's ready to play now, like Mac Jones, makes the most sense, especially because you don't have first-round picks for the next couple of years.
Next up, what is the best fit for Najee Harris?
I think the best fit is with Miami, and I know people are going to think that they just want Alabama reunited in Miami, but I think going there, working with a quarterback that he is used to, would definitely help. I could also see the Steelers being another one. I just think him with Miami would be lethal. Their run game last year wasn't the best, and I think Najee Harris is explosive. He can make plays out of the backfield. He can just make plays happen. I think him going to Miami, not at 18, but I think maybe if they trade down a bit and take him, that would be the best thing for them.
Yeah. I think that the best fit for him is the Steelers. I think that they need a run game bad, especially after losing James Conner, who was their best back last year, even though he was injured for the majority of the season. And I think that the Steelers, right now they don't have an O-line, so a power back like Harris who can just go in there and bully the defensive line and make it to the second and third levels of the defense makes the most sense for the Steelers, and that's why I think Harris is the best fit on the Steelers.
Yeah, again, I can see that happening. I think ETN is the overall better running back. I just think that they're both first-round talent. I think Najee Harris going to the Steelers or Dolphins will make him better.
Did you just say that Travis Etienne is the better overall running back?
Yes.
Travis Etienne is the better receiving back, while Najee Harris is the better power back, the better elusive back, the bigger back, the higher upside back, has less yards on his legs, while Travis Etienne is the all-time leading rusher in the ACC, while Najee Harris had the talent to start all 3 years, but he only started his last year. And he has less miles, more upside, more speed, more power, and arguably better hands than Etienne. Harris is by far the best running back in this class. Back to what we were arguing before, I think that the Steelers are the best fit simply because he'd go in there, he'd be the day one starter without a single shadow of a doubt, and he'd probably go in there and have a really good shot at winning Rookie of the Year.
I mean, even if he goes to Miami, he's going to be the starting back. I think he'll be the starting back wherever he goes.
I think maybe he might be this, depending on where he goes, he'll be the starting back, but Steelers make the most sense. They want to be a run-heavy offense, and you saw it last year. They want to be run-heavy, but they couldn't because they didn't have a back, so they did 1-yard drop-off passes, and you get a guy like Harris, and he can just go in there and, as I said before, get to the second and third levels of the defense with ease.
We talked about Najee Harris, but what about Christian Barmore? Who do you guys think is the best fit for him?
I think that the best fit for Christian Barmore is probably this is a really hard one, actually, because he's the best defensive tackle, and then there's a huge drop-off. So you have to take into account what teams need a defensive tackle, what teams would actually be the best fit. And I think one of the best fits for him would honestly probably be either the Dolphins or a team like the Jaguars. I think that a team, and I'm going to stick with him on the Jaguars because that's where I have him going in my mock draft currently, is I think that they need a guy on this defensive line again after you had Saxonville less than 4 years ago, one of the best defenses arguably of all time, and now that there's really nobody left from that defense aside from Myles Jack. You need to get a guy in there who has, as an interior force, whose upside is really high and has a low floor. So I think that you need to get him in there. He'd be a day one starter. He'd be the best player on that defensive line. And I think that that's exactly what he needs to succeed and what the Jacksonville Jaguars need to succeed as well. So it's a win-win situation if he goes to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I can easily see him going to Jacksonville, but I think his best fit would be with the Bucs. I think that their defensive tackles are getting a bit old, and I think he could go in, learn under Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, and be the starter. He's a run stuffer. He's a problem. He's a nightmare for offensive lines. I think he showed that in the championship game against Ohio State, and I think going to the Bucs, a Super Bowl champion team, that's played not very good O-lines, will be very helpful.
I understand that Ndamukong Suh is getting old, but overall that defensive tackle room is still pretty young, and you only have to have 2 really good defensive tackles if you're running a 4-3, where you have 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers. But I think that right now, yes, it makes sense. If he falls to them, I could see it. However, that is nowhere near the Bucs' biggest need, while the Jacksonville Jaguars have a ton more needs, and he wouldn't start, so it's not a good fit for him because of the fact that he wouldn't be able to get playing time now and better his chances in his career.
Now on the topic of teams, what do you guys think the New England Patriots should do with the 15th overall pick?
I think that they should use it and trade up for a quarterback. They know that one of the top 4 will fall because I think Atlanta's going to go Kyle Pitts, and then I don't think anyone else from 5 to 8 will go quarterback. So I think that the Patriots have to try and trade up ahead of the Broncos, who are looking for a quarterback. There are teams. We know the first 3 are going to be quarterbacks, but then it all depends on which quarterback the 49ers take. If they do take Mac Jones, trading up to 7 is what I see happening, and taking either Trey Lance or Justin Fields. I could easily see them trading up to 4 as well. I think that they have to try and trade up to get one of those quarterbacks because Cam Newton isn't the answer there. He's got a 1-year deal, and someone learning under him would be very good for this team, and Bill Belichick can take them to the next level.
I think the Patriots should sit pretty right where they are. I think that right now, yes, they have Cam Newton, but I think that one of the quarterbacks will probably fall to them, yes. And I think that if Mac Jones falls to you, good pick for you. If Justin Fields falls to you, but if a quarterback doesn't fall to you, I think that they should just take the best player that they can, the best player at the position that they need, and then get a guy like either Mond or Trask in the second round. or second, or a guy like Mond, Trask in the later rounds, I think that would make a lot of sense for them as well. If one of the guys falls to them, sure, go ahead and take them. But I don't think you should use the capital over the next couple of years to try to get a guy that you don't even know if he's going to be the option, because Cam Newton might have a breakout season and then get signed to a longer-term deal.
I could see them staying put and going with best player available. I think that quarterback, though, is their biggest need, and I think that they have to try and get one of those top 4.
They should try to get one of the top 4, but if one of them does not fall to it, I think that sitting pretty, just taking the best player available and taking a guy in the later rounds that's definitely going to be available makes the most sense here.
I mean, if quarterbacks go 1 through 4, and there are other teams like Washington and Chicago trying to trade up for a quarterback, then I think, yeah, they should definitely stay put. But if Lance or Fields falls, I think that's try to trade up.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I just don't think that either of those guys are going to fall. I think that much past 4, I think that the Broncos are probably going to trade up to 4, and then 4 quarterbacks are going to go top 5 in my personal opinion. And I think that the Patriots should just hope as opposed to try to make a move for a guy. And I don't think that Bill Belichick, the only player that I could really see Bill Belichick falling in love with is Justin Fields, and I don't think he'll fall to them.
I think everyone outside Jacksonville and New York wants Justin Fields. That's quarterback hungry.
Yeah.
All right, guys, now it's time for game picks. First one, Lakers versus Wizards.
I'm going to go with the Wizards here. I think that Bradley Beal is an amazing scorer. I think that he's the leader of that team, and Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal have been playing amazing basketball recently. And the Lakers are still trying to get Anthony Davis reintegrated back into their system, so I think that this is an upset alert for the Wizards to beat the Lakers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Wizards as well. I don't think the Lakers have been playing very good at all recently. They lost their 2 star players. Even though Anthony Davis came back, he has been putting up really good numbers, and the Wizards have been playing really well recently. So give me the Wizards.
Yeah.
All right, guys, Clippers versus Suns.
I'm going to go ahead and say the Suns. They're second in the West right now. They're only a couple games behind the Jazz, and they have a big game coming up against them. I think this game against the Clippers could define their season. They lose, I don't think they'll get the number 1 spot, but if they win, I think they can definitely challenge for it. But I think the Suns are going to win this one.
I also had the Suns winning this one. I think that Devin Booker and Chris Paul are one of the best duos in the NBA right now. And then in the backcourt, and then in the front court, you have DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Johnson, who I really like. And I just think that the Suns team is really well-rounded, while the Clippers team is also really well-rounded. I just think that the talent in the starting 5 and on the bench for the Suns is higher than that of the Clippers.
Yeah, the Clippers have been very inconsistent this year. And I think the Suns, they've been one of the more consistent teams going on 8-game win streaks. And then they'll lose one, and then they'll go back on another 8-game win streak. So I think they're very well-rounded. Like you said, DeAndre Ayton has to play a major role in the last down the stretch. So give me the Suns in this one.
All right, guys, Jazz versus Kings.
You know, I could put my entire bias into this one, but then it'd be really the dumbest thing I've ever said on the record. So I think that the Jazz should win this game because of the fact that the Kings are pretty bad. However, I'm not going to lose all hope. I could see De'Aaron Fox going absolutely off versus Mike Conley.
No, it'll be the Jazz. No worries.
I never changed my mind. I just said that I could see De'Aaron Fox going off against Mike Conley, and that's
Maybe, but the Jazz will win this one.
yeah, the Jazz are going to win easy.
Nets versus Pacers.
Nets, I think the Nets are gonna win this one easily. I think they're operating at full strength, and they got the number 1 seed back. So give me the Nets.
I think that I agree that the Nets will probably win it. I don't think they're completely back at full strength. I think that I could honestly see them resting KD, and because Harden's still out, I could see maybe some not letting off the gas too much, but just enough to where you can beat a team like the Pacers is easy for the Nets. So maybe you only play KD or you only play Kyrie just to make sure that nothing happens to them before the playoffs. So I had the Nets winning.
Spurs versus Celtics.
I'm going to go with the Celtics here. Yes, they've been inconsistent, but they have 2 All-Stars on their team. Kemba Walker used to be an All-Star. They're a really deep, well-rounded team. I don't understand what's causing them to be inconsistent. So I have the Celtics here because of pure, natural, raw talent.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Celtics, too. I think they're way more well-rounded than the Spurs.
Jazz versus Suns.
Give me the Jazz. I think this will be one of the games of the season, and I think that it's going to be a very good game. I think they're going to go off. I think the Jazz are going to pull it out.
Give me the Suns here. I think that they're the best team in the West right now. I just think that the Jazz got off to a really hot start at the beginning of the year, and they haven't, since that, what was it, a 17-game win streak they went on? They've been really on and off, hit or miss, and the Suns have just been a model of consistency, so I have the Suns winning this game.
Kings versus Lakers.
You see, there's a lot of things to take into account here. First off, you got to look at the matchups, and in the matchups right now at the point guard and shooting guard position, the Kings have an advantage. At every other position on the court, including the bench, the Lakers have the advantage. So I think that the point guard and shooting guard matchups between Dennis Schroeder and De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield and I think it's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are going to be very fun matchups to watch, but I'm not looking forward to seeing Harrison Barnes go up against Anthony Davis at power forward. Not looking forward to that whatsoever. And then at center, actually the Kings do have a slight advantage in that category with Rashawn Holmes over Andre Drummond on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's going to be a good game, and I have the Kings pulling it out.
Give me the Lakers. I think they're way better than the Kings. And even though they're injury riddled, I still think they're going to win. They're going to win this one by 15 plus. Give me the Lakers.
And I think you're wrong.
I just want to say I think the Lakers are going to win. I'm sorry, Will. I'm not sorry, Will. Next up, Warriors versus Rockets.
Give me the Warriors. I think Curry's been playing out of his mind recently. I think he's definitely in talk for MVP. I think he should win the MVP. But I think the Rockets, they're very bad right now. So give me the Warriors.
Remember at the beginning of the season when we were talking about the Rockets being actual playoff contenders and then they lost like 30 in a row or something like that? Yes. After the loss of Christian Wood? Give me not the Rockets. Whoa, I almost said that out loud. Give me the Warriors without a shadow of a doubt. Named without John Wall and Christian Wood, who's on that team? Exactly. And those are at two very decent positions, but Christian Wood hasn't been playing much, and John Wall is getting paid way too much money to play basketball right now. So
he's going to score like 60 points.
Please.
Nuggets versus Clippers.
What a fun game to watch here. I think that there's a defensive advantage for the Clippers, but I think that the Nuggets offense will overpower the Clippers, and Jokic will probably drop a triple-double on the Clippers' head. So give me the Nuggets.
Yeah, give me the Nuggets as well. I think Jokic is the MVP favorite right now.
No.
I think he's been playing out of his mind recently, so give me the Nuggets. Very close game, though. But
before we move on, Jokic, in my opinion, is not the MVP favorite. It's this guy, you might have heard of him. His name's Joel Embiid. He's kind of a big deal. He's like 7 feet tall and can drop 40 and 20 any game he wants to. So.
Big fan own the league.
Last one for today, guys. Nets versus Bucks.
Give me the Bucks. I think that the Nets, they're on paper probably a little bit more favored here, but I think that Giannis is going to go off against KD's subpar defense. And Drew Holiday is probably going to do his best to lock up Kyrie, who some people say has the best handles of all time. He's number 2. Yeah, no. Allen Iverson has the best handles of all time. Thanks for playing. I think that Drew Holiday and Kyrie Irving is going to be a nice matchup, and then after the stars are taken out of it, I think that the Bucks have a deeper team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bucks as well. I think that the Nets, I think they're still the best team in the East, but I think the Bucks have more depth and they're gonna overpower in the paint.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, especially because of how bad DeAndre Jordan is.
Giannis is gonna have a field day anytime he gets in the paint.
Once again, this was Beyond the Sidelines. I'm John Gutierrez.